Funding for New Mexico in Focus is provided by viewers like you.
This week on New Mexico in Focus, the incumbent in the state's most competitive congressional race shares his vision for the state's southernmost district. And
that's my life's work, is making sure that New Mexicans can thrive.
You cannot throw money at a problem. You've got to figure out the root cause of it. So that's where I come in.
Hear from both candidates running to represent our state's first congressional district and a big chunk of the Albuquerque metro area. New Mexico in Focus starts now. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm senior producer Lou DeVizio. Election day is nearly here, and we're marking the occasion with our remaining candidate conversations. In the last 2 weeks, you've heard from Senator Martin Heinrich and District 3 Congresswoman Teresa Leger Fernandez. This week, politics correspondent Gwyneth Dolan interviews Leger Fernandez's Republican opponent, that's Sharon Klages-Shillich, a Navajo former state representative from Farmington. That's coming up at the bottom of the hour. In about 15 minutes, you'll hear from both candidates for New Mexico's sprawling 1st Congressional District, starting with incumbent Democrat Melanie Stansbury. After that, her Republican opponent, Steve Jones, explains why he thinks his background as a certified public accountant and energy executive gives him the fiscal perspective to make New Mexico more prosperous. But we begin tonight with our state's 2nd Congressional District and incumbent Democrat Gabe Vasquez. According to the Albuquerque Journal, the first-term congressman holds a 4-point lead over his opponent, former U.S. Representative Yvette Herrell. Now, we've sent several requests for an interview with Herrell, but we've never received a response. In this interview, correspondent Russell Contreras asks Vasquez for his opinion on a proposed immigration bill, one that has seen pushback from immigrant advocates as it would expand the border wall and restrict how migrants can seek asylum.
Congressman, thank you for joining us here at New Mexico in Focus.
Russell, it's great to join you today.
To start off with, Congressman, you are finishing your first term in Congress. In this divided Congress where very little legislation was passed this session into law. Why should the constituents of District 2 send you back to Congress for another term?
Well, look, what we've seen in the last Congress is one of the most dysfunctional bodies in the House of Representatives in the history of this country. Now, that was for one reason. It was MAGA Republicans that controlled the agenda. And as we saw Republicans struggle even to elect a House Speaker, when we talk about the most pressing issues that are facing our country, inflation, immigration, when we talk about the future of global security, Republicans weren't able to deliver for the American people. And so that was really frustrating. But what I did do is work in a bipartisan way to introduce bills and to support legislation that has a chance to pass if we have a democratically controlled Congress in the next 2-year cycle.
Now, Vice President Kamala Harris, whom you support for president, says she will support that bipartisan border security immigration bill if she goes to the White House. That bill, of course, calls for more miles of the border wall and restricts how some immigrants or migrants can seek asylum. Is this a piece of legislation that you would support?
Well, look, since being in Congress, I have met with immigrant families, with immigrant rights organizations. I've been down to the border to meet with Customs and Border Protection and Border Patrol. And I've understood the issues that exist right here in the 2nd District of New Mexico. And the truth is that, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Now, I represent 180 miles of the U.S.-Mexico border. I also represent ranchers and farmers that right now are facing historic labor shortages. I represent communities in Albuquerque that can't get enough hospitality or restaurant workers. So I think we have to match our nation's needs, workforce needs, with the challenges that we face at the border. We didn't get a chance to vote on that bill on the House side because Donald Trump killed that bill on the Senate side, which was a bipartisan compromise. And so, as you know, both chambers get a chance to work on that bill before it gets sent back to Congress. And so I am eager, and I look forward to being able to work in a bipartisan way to come up with some solutions that can help fix the immigration challenges that we face, and at the same time support and help our economy right now to lower costs for everyday Americans.
But, some immigrant advocates and some Democrats strongly oppose that measure or these measures. And they say it's too draconian, if not racist. What do you do to change their mind to engage them on that bipartisan effort?
Well, look, the fact is that we haven't had any meaningful immigration reform in this country since the Reagan era. And so many of our families here, especially in my district, that went through that process of naturalization and eventually American citizenship benefited tremendously from that. And those are the folks that today are our small business owners. Those are the folks that today are nurses and doctors and teachers in our communities. And so we need to figure out a way to make sure that those folks that have been working hard in this country for years, including dreamers, which we have seemed to have forgotten about, at least the Republicans have seemed to have forgotten about, first and foremost, get a fair shot. And that's why the American Dream and Promise Act should be at the top of the agenda for Democrats, just as a start. And so when we talk about, the humanitarian crisis that we are facing at the border, I think that there's legislative and policy solutions that can help us meet our workforce needs, that can help make sure that we have a humanitarian and orderly process for people, whether they're seeking asylum or seeking to come into this country under specialized visas, have an opportunity to have some type of residency. And I've introduced 6 different bills that deal with this issue. And those 6 bills have been directly informed by the people of the 2nd District of New Mexico. So first and foremost, I'm hoping my bills get heard in committee and eventually pass the House floor.
Now, former President Donald Trump has says he would begin the largest deportation in American history on day one, even saying he would invoke the 1798 Enemies Aliens Act and possibly create camps around the country to make sure that this happens. What's your opinion of Donald Trump's plan to deport millions of people currently in the country, and how would you respond as a U.S. congressman, as someone who represents a district with a lot of immigrants?
Well, look, that's not a feasible solution, and that is just putting it lightly. The thought of even rounding up Hispanic Americans or Latino Americans or really any other immigrant class in this country into some type of deportation camp is really unheard of, and it's not who we are as Americans. This is probably one of the most ill-conceived plans that I've ever heard from any presidential candidate, as long as I've been paying attention to politics. It's something that is simply not feasible, that would cost this country billions of dollars. And not only that, but it does a disservice to all of the folks who have been here, who have been working hard. And so I don't see that as a realistic plan. I'm sure that plays with some of Trump's base. We just saw his surrogates recently at Madison Square Garden, refer to the Puerto Rican community as a heap of trash. We heard the comments about Latino families and that are incredibly offensive. This is what he truly represents and his party represents. Whether he can actually get any of those things accomplished through policy or administrative action is one of the things I'm in Congress to stop.
Congressman, you've advocated for better access to health care in rural areas, especially tribal parts of the state, and applauded a recent groundbreaking of a reproductive center in Darien County this September. Tell the viewers, what have you accomplished in Congress in regards to rural health care, and what do you plan to push if reelected?
Well, look, we face so many different healthcare challenges across the state, especially in our rural communities. And what we've seen the greatest need for at this point is mental health care services. That's incredibly important for places like Lordsburg and Deming and Carlsbad and Hobbs and Magdalena Reserve, you name it, and our tribal communities as well. So I've introduced legislation to help bring rural doctors to New Mexico, to make sure that we have the opportunity to bring residencies here to New Mexico and increase the visas for folks that are willing to work in rural healthcare and have an opportunity at American citizenship. I think that's really important. And when it comes to reproductive rights, look, we know that we are a safe haven for women across the country, but really our neighboring states of Arizona and Texas and even Oklahoma, who we are helping today to achieve the reproductive health care services that they truly need. And that's in large part due to our state legislature, but it also comes with the support of our federal legislature. And that's myself and my colleagues in the House and in the Senate And we will be opening here soon, and we just broke ground on what will be the largest reproductive health care center in New Mexico, right here in Las Cruces.
And Congressman, if you have the chance to vote on a law that protects reproductive rights across the country, as what the Vice President is proposing, if that bill, though, contains a compromise, getting late-term abortion off the table, meaning that it would be not included in that package, is that a deal that you could support?
Well, look, I'm going to stick with this. And this is, I think, something that everybody who experiences pregnancy, women across the country, can agree with. And that is that the healthcare decisions, that should be left up to their doctors and to their family and to their faith should remain that way. Now, this was the law of the land before Roe versus Wade was overturned. My opponent, Yvette Herrell, has voted consistently over her time in the state legislature and in Congress to ban abortion with no exceptions for rape or for incest or for the life of the mother. That is her record. That is what she has voted on. And that is what the voters of New Mexico should know and understand about how she plans to vote in the future.
Congressman, your opponent, Yvette Herrell, and the RNCC have hit you pretty hard on this campaign. One ad, Loose with the Facts, used an El Paso police report from 20 years ago detailing allegations that you were calling and harassing employees at a former job. The human resource director from your former employer told police that you called one of the employees the N-word. What is your response to that?
Well, look, first and foremost, that is a categorical lie. That never happened, and I would never use that word. And in fact, the manager of that same facility said so as such, commented on his story and said Gabe Vasquez would never say this. And look, this is just another example of Republicans trying to detract away from the real issues.
So that police report, from your vantage point, is wrong?
Absolutely. It is untrue and it is wrong.
Okay. Congressman, Vice President Kamala Harris has changed her position on fracking. Before she advocated a ban on fracking, now she says that she's opposed to a ban on fracking. New Mexico is reliant on oil and gas revenues for its budget. Where do you stand on fracking? Do you oppose a ban or are you for it?
Well, look, New Mexico has one of the greatest advantages in all of the United States in that we are one of the greatest energy producers of all the 50 states. In fact, we have the advantage of both having fossil fuels and renewable energy production right here in my district. We're building the two largest renewable energy transmission lines that will be able to unlock the power of wind and solar in places like Capitan and Carlsbad and Hobbs and in Lordsburg. And at the same time, we also have incredible fossil fuel production. In fact, we have produced more fossil fuels and have leased more federal land under the last administration than any administration ever before. And what I want to make sure is that, one, we are protecting the health care of workers and of those communities that are producing fossil fuels. And so we have to make sure that we have clean air and clean water. Otherwise, we cannot have any other industries, any other businesses survive. And so, it's really important to me, so much so that I introduced the Energy Workers Health Improvement Act, which is a compensation fund, essentially, that would give the actual workers the opportunity to receive health care based on any type of respiratory diseases or illness that they have from companies that have failed to properly cap their wells, that have excess methane emissions, and that are contributing to pollution in surrounding communities. Now, that doesn't mean we can't have a strong fossil fuel economy. We certainly can. And that includes an all of the above approach. And we can do that, and we can do it safely, but we have to have somebody who's looking out for the people and not for the CEOs. And that's the difference between me and my opponent.
Herrell and the Republicans have repeatedly used footage of you in an attack ad, claiming that shows this is evidence Gabe Vasquez supports defunding the police. Now, a lot was left out in that video in the ad. Please explain to our viewers once and for all, do you support defunding the police, or what kind of reforms are you looking toward?
Well, look, if you look at my record, and this is what voters should be looking at, is I've actually provided more funding to police and to border security than Yvette Herrell has during her time in Congress. In fact, that goes to the tune of over $4 million during my time here in Congress in projects that I've sponsored by myself in places like Albuquerque and in places like Deming and in places like Las Cruces In addition to that, when I was on the Las Cruces City Council, every year that I was there, I voted to increase the police budget, and that's to the tune of over $2 million. My opponent can say what she wants, but my record is there when it comes to securing funding for police and for public safety. And the reality is, look, that the conditions on the ground are changing. Now that we see the fentanyl crisis and we see a mental health crisis, where we allocate funds and how we treat the people that are facing addiction or, that really truly need those services for them to get back on their feet is just as important as funding the police. And I think we can do both of those things. We can both fund law enforcement and fund mental health services for these folks. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. That's my agenda while I'm in Congress. But I have, again, supported and given more money to public safety and to local police and state police than my opponent ever has.
Congressman Gabe Vasquez, thank you for joining us today on New Mexico in Focus.
Thank you so much, Russell.
Thanks to Russell and Representative Vasquez. Again, we contacted the campaign of Vasquez's Republican opponent, Yvette Herrell, multiple times asking for an interview and never heard back. Now we move on to New Mexico's 1st congressional district, where Representative Melanie Stansbury is running for another 2-year term. In this interview with politics correspondent Gwyneth Doland, the Congresswoman talks about the work that she's done to address the state's ongoing housing crisis.
Representative Melanie Stansbury, thank you so much for being with us.
It's wonderful to be here.
Your district was radically changed during redistricting a few years ago, and now it goes all the way from Albuquerque down, out east to Fort Sumner, down nearly to Roswell, over to Ruidoso. Critics have said that the Democrats gerrymandered this district and that it disenfranchises Republican voters who dominate those rural parts of the district. Your opponent, Steve Jones, lives in Ruidoso. Why should you be the one to represent this district?
Well, first of all, as a native New Mexican, I actually grew up in a rural community. I was born in Farmington. We moved to Albuquerque when I was a kid, but I love my district. I've got 10 counties. We go from, as you said, Sandoval County and Albuquerque all the way out to the East Mountains and the plains out at Santa Rosa and Fort Sumner. We go down to the northern part of Roswell and the Lincoln County area, and we've got all of the east side of Valencia County. This is tribal communities, it's land grants, it's farming and ranching communities, and of course it's the Albuquerque metro area. And as somebody who grew up here, somebody who was raised by these communities, as somebody who's dedicated my entire life to working on issues that support New Mexico families, that's my life's work, is making sure that New Mexicans can thrive. And I believe that actually the redistricting made our state more well represented, because now we have districts that have all of the different kinds and diverse communities in each of the 3 districts. And so you've got 3 members of Congress that are fighting that good fight every day in Congress for our communities.
Your opponent is a former energy company executive. You have a background in science and water issues. What is your approach to the climate crisis in a state where the economy is powered by oil and gas?
Yeah, well, it's very clear. The science is clear that is very clear that climate change is already here, and we see that in all of the catastrophic fires and floods and storms that we've experienced here in New Mexico, and just the last few weeks in the southeast and across Florida. And in fact, in Ruidoso, we had the largest fire in New Mexico history just a couple of months ago. We lost 1,400 structures. There were over 500 homes lost in the catastrophic floods and rains that came afterwards. And so we know the urgency of climate change because it's here, it's impacting our communities. Now, while I've been in Congress, it's been one of my top issues. I've been championing climate legislation, and I'm proud to have helped pass the Inflation Reduction Act, which is not only the largest bill to address climate and clean energy in American history, but in the history of the planet. And that bill has been delivering millions of dollars back to New Mexico. We're building the largest wind farm in North America, just out here in Torrance and Santa Fe counties. We're investing in solar and wind manufacturing in Bernalillo and Valencia County, and creating thousands of jobs in the process. But the final thing that I want to say about this is that we have to make sure that this is a just transition, and that all of our communities have the opportunity to participate in both the energy transition and to be safe from the impacts of climate change. And so as the ranking member on the Natural Resources Committee for Oversight, I've been leading efforts in Congress to help pass just transition legislation to help our communities on the front lines.
Let me dig into that a little bit more because, wind farms take people to build them, but ultimately not very many people work there. So how do you accomplish this just transition without turning an entire industry, having it vacate and leave us like the Rust Belt?
I think you have to think about the just transition as an overall economy. The current economy that we have was built over the last 150 years and is dependent on a fossil fuel industry. And so everything from our cars to our grid to, manufacturing is powered by fossil fuels. And so transition means that we're transitioning to clean energy sources. And in the process, we're building a new economy and we're creating thousands of new jobs in that new economy. It doesn't mean that all the jobs will be in the energy sector. It means they'll be in manufacturing, they'll be in other sectors and natural resource stewardship. And I can tell you that New Mexico is one of the largest recipients of Inflation Reduction Act money, as well as CHIPS and Science Act money, which we passed last Congress, which is literally creating thousands of jobs for New Mexico. In fact, at this point, we have more jobs than people because we need to develop the skilled workforce to work in all of these industries. So a just transition is about a combination of creating new economic opportunity. It's about making sure New Mexicans get jobs in the new industries that are being created as a result of it. And it means that for our communities that are low income, that are rural, that maybe never connected to the grid, we have, communities that still are not connected to the grid, that they have the opportunity to participate in that transition.
Let me switch quickly to crime. New Mexicans are tired of having to wait for someone to open a cabinet so they can buy shampoo. What do you think is the solution to our experience of retail crime and more generally property crime?
Yeah, it's clear New Mexico is experiencing a crime epidemic just like so many communities across the country. And what we know is it's being fueled by both drug trafficking and an addiction crisis. It's very clear when you look at the data and you talk to law enforcement, and property crime is a part of that overall addiction crisis. So I've been working since I've been serving in Congress to help bring millions of dollars back to our district, working with our federal, state, and local law enforcement to help with crime detection, intervention programs, to, of course, catch folks who are doing bad things, but also to address the addiction crisis, because really we are ground zero for the fentanyl crisis here in New Mexico, and we have to rebuild the behavioral health system that's going to help our people get better. And so I've delivered millions of dollars back to our district to help build behavioral health clinics for folks who are struggling with addiction. And it will continue to be one of my top priorities in the next Congress, because our communities are really struggling, and crime is a symptom of our communities really struggling to get by.
Guns. According to the governor's gun violence dashboard, there was an 84% increase in firearm-related deaths in New Mexico between 2011 and 2022. Your opponent is a strong supporter of gun rights. What will you do in Congress to keep New Mexicans safe from gun violence?
Well, I think one of the things that's important to understand is that there was a huge increase in violent crime, especially during the pandemic. So when you look at that time scale, we're also looking at what happened during the pandemic. But listen, every 11 minutes across the United States, there is another gun violence accident. There is over 42,000 shootings a year in the United States, and we are the only upper income country in the world that is making the policy decision to not take action on gun violence. There are very clear, straightforward solutions that we know the vast majority of Americans support: universal background checks, an assault weapons ban, regulating ghost guns, and the components that are associated with them. But our colleagues across the aisle in Congress will not even sign a petition to allow a vote to happen on the House floor on gun violence. Now, I am proud to have voted for a bipartisan gun safety piece of legislation that was passed 2 summers ago. But, we know that there are solutions that will save lives, and we have to have leaders who are going to go and fight and care for our communities, because no parent should have to hold their breath when they hear a shelter in place. No child should have to feel afraid to go to school. People shouldn't have to think about whether or not they're going to be gunned down in church or a grocery store or on the streets. And so this is something that we have to address as a society and as a government, and we need leaders who are going to do the work.
A recent analysis by the Coalition to End Homelessness showed a big increase in the number of seniors living on the streets. And the numbers actually went up the most outside of Albuquerque. What can you do in Congress to alleviate New Mexico's homelessness rate?
Yeah, I mean, we're also facing an affordable housing crisis here in New Mexico, and it's happening all over the country. And for me, this is also a very personal issue. I grew up with a low-income single mom. We struggled with housing insecurity in part of my childhood, moved around, stayed with friends. And so I think for a lot of New Mexicans, that's a reality. But what we've seen over the last couple of years is just the cost of living has exploded. You know, the cost of housing, inflation, rental rates, and we also don't have enough housing units for the people that live here in New Mexico. And that issue is particularly acute for our seniors who are on fixed incomes, and it's also very acute in our rural areas because there hasn't been an investment in housing stock there. And I believe that housing is a basic human right, and we have to treat it like infrastructure. We treat water pipelines and broadband and electricity as infrastructure. Housing is also infrastructure. And so in my office, we've worked on housing literally every single day. We're working on legislation to help bring a massive investment in affordable housing to our state. We're working with various counties and localities to address housing and homelessness. And we've delivered back millions of dollars in funding for homeless programs here, including our city's very first youth homeless shelter. We helped to build a new veterans housing campus here in Albuquerque, and we're investing in a bunch of programs that help support families as they're getting back on their feet. But we have to do this work because it's critical to the well-being of our families.
Can you give me just quickly a detail about that massive investment in housing here?
Yeah, so we have legislation in front of Congress that unfortunately we have not been able to pass because my colleagues across the aisle have been incapable of governing this Congress, I think is the best way to put it. And that legislation is led by Ranking Member Maxine Waters, who's worked on housing and homeless issues for many, many years. And it would be the largest single investment in affordable housing ever made in the history of the United States. We tried to pass it last Congress as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, but it was unfortunately part of that social infrastructure package that didn't make it across the finish line. So housing is going to be one of our top priorities in the next Congress.
Abortion. New Mexico's lack of restrictions on abortion are bringing folks from all over the country here to terminate their pregnancies. Are you in favor of any restrictions on abortion?
We need to restore Roe versus Wade. Day one. That's our agenda for the next Congress. We've seen the devastating consequences of Donald Trump's Supreme Court in the Dobbs decision and the leave it to the states approach. What that has resulted in is millions of American women without access to basic reproductive care and abortion care. That means, as you've pointed out, that thousands of people from surrounding states are coming to New Mexico to get care. What folks need to understand is abortion care is yes, abortion care, but also reproductive care more generally. That means, access to health care when you're having the tragedy of a miscarriage or something that's gone wrong with your pregnancy, And these are not issues that the government should be involved in. These are life or death situations that women should have a fundamental right to make decisions about their own bodies, about their health care, about whether or not they make a decision regarding to have a family or not have a family. This is a human rights issue, and we have to pass the Women's Health Protection Act to restore Roe versus Wade. And I do not support putting restrictions on abortion because it is a fundamental human right to make decisions and to access health care.
Last question, and we have just 1 minute. What is the single most important issue for you in this election? What's the one thing you most want to do if voters send you back to Congress?
Well, it's hard to answer with one single thing, but this election is about our democracy. It's about making sure that Donald Trump never sets foot near the White House again. And it's about ensuring that we protect our basic rights and that we can continue to deliver for New Mexicans and for all Americans. And that's what I'm fighting for: democracy, protection of our fundamental rights, and to continue to serve the communities that raised me, loved me, and supported me so that I could be here and serve them back.
Representative Stansbury, thank you so much for coming in and talking to us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again to Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury for that interview. Now we hear from her Republican opponent, Steve Jones. He stops by our studio to discuss his top priority, a return to fiscal conservatism.
Steve Jones, thank you so much for being with us today.
It is my pleasure. And Gwyneth, before we get started, I want to tell people, go and immediately subscribe, because this is the kind of quality information that PBS supplies.
Oh, well, thank you very much. So you live in Ruidoso, although you have only lived in New Mexico for a few years.
5 years,
Your opponent was born and raised in New Mexico.
Right.
Why are you the better candidate to represent a district whose residents are majority living in the big city?
Well, there's another way. Let me reverse it. Don't blame any of this that's happened to New Mexico on me, because I wasn't here. Now, I always say, you've been here, why didn't you solve the problem? We've been at the bottom of a lot of lists ranking states. It's abundantly clear that we have issues, and so we've given my opponent an opportunity to cure the problem. And yet, what I'm saying is that you cannot throw money at a problem. You've got to figure out the root cause of it. So that's where I come in. My number one skill, Gwyneth, is problem solving. I'm a strategic thinker, and I've done this literally worldwide.
Mm-hmm. How important do you think it is? How much of the job of a U.S. congressman is it to bring federal dollars home to New Mexico?
You're on my favorite topic. You know, before we get to that, we have an existential crisis, to use the term that everybody loves to use now, and that is that we are spending so much and incurring so much debt that we actually have debt service now equal to the total of the Defense Department budget. Translating that, we are on an unsustainable course for bankruptcy of the U.S. government. Now, people say, no, that'll never happen. Well, you know what they do, Gwyneth, is they just simply turn on the printing press. The M1 money supply increased substantially over the last 5 years. Now, back to your question, taking a lot of money that we don't already have needs for, well, we obviously have needs for it, but in excess of what we're already doing, basically exacerbates inflation, accelerates the government's potential financial disaster, and worse yet, I don't see it solving problems. We spend more, as an example, on education than many states and have the worst achievement. So I'd like to say that's like looking at things through the wrong end of a telescope. The system right now is throw money, and that's got to solve the problem. Wrong, it doesn't. You've got to get much more into the problem and solve it, and then fund it without prejudice, if you will, to the fact that we are going bankrupt.
Let me ask you about Trump. In 2022, you tweeted, while Twitter contemplates allowing Trump to use this social media, I am resolving to do all that I can to take us away from his form of hatred and division.
Correct.
Now, you have pledged to vote for Trump this year.
Yes.
But you're clearly not that fond of him.
No.
Why are you the right candidate to support a district, an area of the state where voters are quite passionate about Trump?
Well, Gwyneth, I've seen litmus tests for candidates before. It's one of those little things that we like to wave the red flag. Oh no, this guy's going to be horrible because he does this or that. This is probably the least of those issues. I'm almost in agreement with the Pope, who says what you got this year is the choice between the lesser of two evils, and I've heard that comparison made before. So the fact that I'm voting for Trump does not mean that I can't solve the problems that Congressional District 1 has. It's almost inconsequential to that. Now, if you want to say, well, it's a reflection of your character, okay, I get that argument a little bit more, but the point that I made earlier on when we were talking is, for decades, we've had problems. We're at the bottom of these lists. We cannot keep electing the same office holders over and over and over again and expecting a change. That's the very definition of insanity.
You've been critical of Trump's actions on January 6th
Yes.
and the riots.
Yes.
And you have said that you would absolutely accept the results of this election, that we have one of the best election systems
In the world. Yep.
Are you worried that he would do that again?
Well, certainly. Certainly. If you read the rest of those text messages that I did at that time, I said I feared Donald Trump. But here's where I believe that we in the United States have something that they didn't have in, say, example, Venezuela. And that is that we have a series of control mechanisms set up so that if someone were to exceed the boundary of their authority, that they could be brought to bear. There's a control mechanism here that doesn't exist in a lot of the countries where this could be a much bigger issue. Is he a threat to democracy? No, not because of what he thinks, but because our government, our country, and the Constitution provide us with a protection against any excesses.
So our mechanism would be impeachment and removal from office. Should he have been removed from office?
Well, they tried. They did their darndest. And Gwyneth, I don't think there was anything left on the table when they got through. They threw the kitchen sink at him and didn't get there. You know, the biggest problem that you've got in this country is we as a country are divided. You know, the great unwashed that support Trump, well, they're half of our country. Really, at issue is we've got to become more amicable, more amiable with those who disagree with us.
In a recent debate, you said you did not believe that there should be a pathway to citizenship necessarily, like a guaranteed pathway
let
for
me
those
correct you
who
just a
have entered the country illegally.
Yes, thank you,
Okay.
Gwyneth. Yes.
So, but there are close to 6,000 DACA recipients here in New Mexico. A
Yes.
lot of young people here at the University of New Mexico studying to be engineers and lawyers and doctors, accountants, like you.
Yeah.
So, and we have a state law guaranteeing their right to access our state universities.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to young people here in New Mexico who are at school right now, trying to build careers and stay here?
I'll give you the rest of what I believe on immigration, and that is it ought to be a mirror image of Mexico. And I know very well Mexico. I love Mexico. I love the Hispanic culture there. Been to the immigration offices many times. And what they will tell you is the same thing I would tell DACA in response to your question, Gwyneth, and that is you've got to first leave the country and then lawfully re-enter it. They didn't prejudice my re-entering, and by the way, I was an illegal American Mexican, so I was an illegal, and they said, fine, you go out, you go back through the process, and you come back and you pay a fine. It was a hefty fine for Mexico. I would suggest the same thing, but I really have a fundamental problem with us accepting illegal, breaking our laws as a basis for being able to go forward. It needs to be 2 steps back across the border, and then come back. Now, I would say part of my immigration program is if they're educated here, they should have a right, an opportunity to stay if they're here legally. I think that's one of the things that our immigration has done that was really bad, is that we have really first-class graduates and then mandate that they return to their home country. But with the DACA, with the people who are already here, not of any of their choices, the solution is not to give them, because they entered illegally and stayed, the pathway to citizenship, but rather say, you are going to be eligible, but you got to go back and come in legally.
So you have strong opinions about this.
Oh, absolutely.
But you have not given such detailed opinions on abortion, for example. You've said
Right.
it should be a state issue.
Right.
But if you were elected to Congress and had the opportunity to vote in favor of a law that would criminalize abortion nationally, would you vote to do that?
Absolutely not. I don't believe that the federal government, relative to this topic and many, many, many others, ought to intrude on states' rights. You know, the colonies were very reluctant to
But
sign.
let's stay away from states' rights. Do you think that abortion should be illegal in this country?
No, it ought to be a state issue.
Okay. In vitro fertilization, you told the Journal you didn't have a position on it.
Right.
Do you believe that women and families should be able to choose IVF when they're building a family?
you know, the connotations to that and having it tied back to Roe v. Wade or the other issues is what caused me to say I had no opinion. Do families who want children have an ability to become, let's say, seek other ways? And there's a multitude of ways of doing that, as you well know, Gwyneth. Yes is the answer to that. But as part of a national policy, then I have taken the position of saying, no, I don't have a position
But as a
nationally.
congressman, you would have to vote.
Not on that issue, right? That's a state issue.
Well, if there were legislation, as people
I
are
would
saying
vote
they would
against
like,
it.
you would, well, let me say, if there were legislation guaranteeing the right to IVF,
I would vote against it. If it comes from the federal government,
okay, because you
Fed-
don't want a law.
pardon me?
Because you don't want a law.
I don't want to violate the original construct of the Constitution of the United States, which said these are United States of America, a republic. The republic is the key here. And at no point in our history have we ever fully dissolved that. We've threatened it many times. Many times there has been this federalist movement to say, no, no, no. And there's a lot of that now, Gwyneth, I oppose.
Let me bring you back, though, to crime. You have said that New Mexico's problem is tolerance. Research does overwhelmingly show that stiffer penalties do not deter crime. What solutions would you offer New Mexicans who feel frustrated by property and violent crime?
Well, again, I'm going to tell you something that is probably not real popular about this because, yes, courts are a part of the retention issue and the recidivism issue. But when it comes to the voters, they have rights, and their rights are being violated by the system that is here in New Mexico. They
How would you restore those rights?
can't. That's a state issue. Federal government should not be in New Mexico telling them how to, one, form a police department, two, the conduct of the police, the state courts, the district courts, the state supreme courts, those should be autonomous and sanctified against federal intrusion. I feel very strongly about that, Gwyneth. Now, I do think that that's where the problems need to be solved, but as a congressman, I would be very, very reluctant. Now, you remember the reaction of the voters, the citizens, to the FBI coming in. And that was a very small subset of what could have happened in terms of the federal government's intrusion. It was not desired, not appreciated. A lot of people objected to it. I did as well.
What is the single most important issue to you in this election? The one thing that you most want to accomplish if you're elected to Congress?
I'm a CPA. I am definitely interested in preserving our country fiscally for our children and our grandchildren, and that's my number one. I've got to be the voice of reason to stop inflation where it's coming from, which is overspending, decrease our debt, and tie. Well, I'd love to see a budget. So fiscal. Now, that's boring to a lot of people watching, Gwyneth, but it's critical. If we want to save this country of ours, we've got to address the financial side.
Steve Jones, thank you so much for coming in and talking
It's been a
to
pleasure. A lot of fun talking to you, Glenn.
Thanks again to Steve Jones for that interview. Now we wrap up our candidate conversations with former state representative Republican Sharon Klaji-Shillage. Last week, you heard from her Democratic opponent, Teresa Leger Fernandez. Tonight, Klaji-Shillage gives her thoughts on a variety of issues impacting New Mexico's northernmost district, including education. In her conversation with Gwyneth Doland, she also explains why she isn't concerned about climate change.
Sharon Klaji-Shillage, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Gwyneth. I'm looking forward to this. It's a nice little reunion after, I don't know, how many years?
A number, but yes, you've been in politics a long time. And,
Yeah.
17% of this district identifies as Native American. And you've spoken passionately about what it has been like growing up on the Navajo Nation without running water, electricity, public sewers. What would you do in Congress to improve the lives of Indigenous people in New Mexico?
Definitely request more funding. There is so much need for more funding, and the money is there with Congress. Just need to network, collaborate with people and gain support to get those, get the support for funding. It's a shame that we have a portion, District 3 in New Mexico, that still does not have a lot of the basic necessities, utility infrastructure. And that's a real, like you said, passion of mine.
Thinking about education, you've been a special education teacher. You serve on the Public Education Commission. What do you think New Mexico needs to do to improve outcomes for our kids?
Oh my gosh. We've tried a whole number of things. We've tried new administrators, we've tried new regulations for teachers, we've looked at parents, we've looked at students, and on and on and on. We've looked at the boards. We're wondering if we should return to maybe a state board back to where it used to be. But the one thing we haven't done is we have not acknowledged the schools within New Mexico who are doing phenomenally well. We need to go to those schools and see what they're doing and replicate it throughout the state. We aren't doing that. Going and getting experts from the outside doesn't necessarily work and hasn't worked. So I would suggest that maybe we look at the successful schools in New Mexico and replicate what they're doing. Simple.
New Mexico's economy relies largely on oil and gas, especially historically in your area, in the Four Corners area. It used to be huge in Farmington, but it's contracted now, and it's a fraction of what it once was. And we know that oil and gas can't last forever. So what do you think New Mexico needs to do to stabilize and future-proof our economy?
Oh my gosh, you're asking a big question and a good question. Well, I think first of all, we need to go to what is going on with the economy. We have a lot of our people who don't have money in their wallets to spend, and their concerns are only getting that paycheck, making it through the month, paying bills, and making sure there's food on the table. And so we have an economy that keeps increasing and doesn't balance out with the wages of individuals. So there's no balance there. So we've got to remember, we've got to keep money in the pockets of the people, because if we don't, then they're not spending money and we're not circulating that revenue throughout our state.
When we talk about jobs, a lot of what we hear has to do with immigration. Is immigration a net positive or negative for New Mexico? What do you think?
I think it's negative. We have illegal immigrants coming in, and it seems like our government is really yielding to them in an extreme way, to where it's affecting us as citizens of New Mexico. And what I mean by that is our health care is going to them. Money for health care goes to the illegal immigrants. Education is going to the illegal immigrants. In other words, a lot of our resources meant for our state citizens are going to illegal immigration. So the priority isn't us. The priority are the immigrants who are here illegally.
Now,
and
I should say that 95% of the residents of your district are U.S. citizens.
Yeah, right. So they say. Okay, so they say.
You have said that climate change is real, but that humans are only responsible for part of it, a small part, and that climate change is a natural cleansing cycle for Mother Earth. Yes. Given the effects of climate change that we have seen very recently, hotter temperatures into October this year, bigger fires, more destructive hurricanes, what do you think should be done to address climate change?
I guess I look at climate change, well, I know I look at climate change differently than what is now being addressed throughout the country. I feel like our earth is going through a natural cleansing. And I say this because of articles that are not being printed and studies that reveal that every so many decades or centuries, the earth goes through a cleansing. And it's gone all the way back to before Christ. And those patterns have been studied. And what they have found is a lot of what goes on now is very, I mean, it just verifies that there is a cleansing going on. Now, we don't read about that because it counters the present thinking about climate change. So you look at that, and I've been told that we had that big fire in District 3, Hermit's Peak and Calf Canyon fire that occurred. Initially, it was claimed to be the result of climate change. It's like, wait a minute, that didn't happen because of climate change. That was controlled burn. And that was supposed to be a controlled burn and went out of control. So that was not the cause of climate change. And then I've heard other people saying that the storms in Florida are the result of gas emissions, carbon emissions, electricity, et cetera, et cetera. However, you look at these studies and you look at the patterns, climate change occurred during times when there was no electricity, when there were no cars. So in my view, I see that climate change is a cover for controlling the thought of people in regards to what is going on. And I don't know what the purpose of it, but it seems to be a political ploy. And I don't like that. I mean, just be honest with me. If you don't want certain things to happen, or if you want to control certain areas to occur, then tell me that. Don't blame it on something like climate change. So that's where I'm coming from. I just looking at these studies, it just verifies what I'm saying.
I have 2 more questions and 2 minutes.
Okay.
So you do not support abortion rights, but I want to ask about in vitro fertilization. Do you believe that Americans should have the right to use IVF to grow their families?
I guess whether or not the right is there is out of my control, because depending upon who's moving that and pushing it, it's going to be there whether I believe in it or not. And I personally, I don't agree with it, mainly because it's similar to abortion. There's a control made on, and a control made on a life that could possibly occur. And say like a woman decided to use an egg and was able to have a pregnancy and have a child. So what happens to the other eggs that are being saved as well? Are they discarded? And that is very serious to me, because I look at that as life. I look at that as similar to abortion. We're getting rid of a life of those areas. And it's very controversial for me. I'm a spiritual being, and it really goes against my belief in that area. So I would have to, I guess, being in Congress, I would look at this very carefully to see how it's, I guess, sold, marketed. But right now, no, I can't support it.
Last is Trump. You have been a strong supporter of former President Trump. Do you believe he lost the 2020 election?
It appears so. There are more reports showing that there was illegal activity. There's too many questions to make me believe that it was not a questionable event.
Well, let me put it this way. Why do you think a second Trump presidency would be better for New Mexico than if Kamala Harris won the White House?
Truth. The truth would be told. I don't like what's going on now. I don't like how my intelligence is insulted with half truths, full truths, and me being told that how to think, what not to think about. I don't like that kind of control being placed on me, and that's an insult on my intelligence, the intelligence of other people. I like the history of Donald Trump. I like what he did in terms of policies, in terms of legislation, in terms of helping America, in terms of looking out for our safety against other countries. I like that. So please, I mean, and I'm not saying this to you, I'm saying this to the public. So please don't tell me that Biden did a phenomenal job in keeping the other countries at bay. Look at what's going on now. And look at how the media is not reporting accurately what is going on. That I don't like. And I don't like how Kamala has these interviews and it's very insulting to us. Insults our intelligence. We can see what's going on. And so that alone gets me to supporting Trump. I'm going to support him because he's a better choice over what we are currently getting. And, you know, people can watch and see for themselves unless they have been convinced, indoctrinated to think otherwise.
Sharon Klatsche-Shillich, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Gwyneth. I really appreciate this.
Thanks to Gwyneth Doland for all of her work this election season, to Russell Contreras, and thanks to everyone else who contributed to the show. The candidate conversations that you watched on the show tonight had to be cut down to fit in our hour-long broadcast, but you can watch each of the full unedited interviews online right now on the New Mexico in Focus YouTube page, the PBS app, or nmpbs.org. And if you haven't already, get out there and vote. We'll be right back here next week for an election wrap-up to analyze how these races and others shook out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you then.
Funding for New Mexico in Focus is provided by viewers like you.